Good morning, this is Deborah Pruitt at JBay in the FYSCP College and Career Transition Webinar. And welcome, glad you're all here. We've got a good number of people here, especially given that it's the middle of July. No, towards the end of July. And so it's great to have you all here. And we're very fortunate to have a couple of guest speakers, Megan Malloy from Butte County Office of Education and Paul Durham from San Bernardino County Office of Education. But before we get to that part of the program, I just wanted to remind you or inform you, if you haven't been on a GoToWebinar before, that you have a control panel on the right side of your screen, which you can actually move around if you want to. But that's where you have the opportunity to raise your hand so that if you want to ask a question, you can do that, and I can unmute you and we can hear you. Right now, everyone is muted. If you're on a computer audio, I cannot unmute you. So you would need to post your question or comment in the question panel there in the control panel. So if you want to call back in using the number and access code that you got on your email, then you can do that. Don't use the one that's on the screen here. That's an old example. And wanted to remind you that this is being recorded, and we will post the materials, the recording and slides on the JBay, the California College Pathways website, and I'll give you that in a minute. It's the FYSCP resource page, and I'll also be sending you a follow-up email with the link for that. So it'll probably take about 1 to 2 days for that to be posted. That way you can also share it with anyone else in your office that might not have been able to attend. So a nice announcement I get to make. You may have heard about this already, but I wanted to be sure that there's a very recent development in the KFES programs, or what are now called the Next Step programs. The expansion has occurred, which was the bill that was passed in SB 12 that allowed for expansion to more districts. So in April, Butte College and Los Rios District, Kern Community College District, Chaffee District, and Riverside District all were awarded the KFES program. So they are getting up and running, ready to roll for the fall. And then just last week, we got an announcement that 4 more colleges had been approved. This was due to an increase in budget allocation. So Long Beach, Merced, College of the Sequoias, and Victor Valley now have Next Step programs. So I'm sure many of you will be able to direct your students to those programs, and it's just great news because it's hugely valuable support to those students who are eligible. Those are students who were in care after 16, as of their 16th birthday, and are under 24. And all that information is available on the Next Step website, which I put the link on this slide for you. Also, just wanted to remind you that our next FYSCP TA webinar is scheduled for Thursday, August 16th at 10 a.m. So you can add that to your calendar if you haven't already. So I'm really pleased that we get to have a couple of guest speakers today, and this is about leveraging your advisory council and facilitating interagency collaboration, part of the charge of the FYSCP program. And I know that, we've been able to feature Ventura and Riverside County on this last year when we started the learning community, and we've heard from San Bernardino and, Santa Barbara and Kern counties and Sonoma and many others during the FAFSA Challenge about various collaborations that developed or evolved. So I know a lot of you, most of you probably all have great stories to share about county collaborations, but I just happen to know a little bit about Butte County and San Bernardino County and some of their strengths, and I thought it would be great to share the spotlight and give them a chance to share some of their experience and hopefully spark some conversation about what works, what could be helpful in your area, and we'd love to hear from you about what you've been doing and what's been successful as well. So that's about all I have right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan Malloy, Program Coordinator, Director. I meant to change that. I think it's a recent title change. Congratulations, Megan. And this is Butte County Office of Education. So it's all yours, Megan.
Okay, good morning. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, Megan, we can hear you. Now I don't hear you. I've never had this problem. Let's see what's going on.
Can you, well, how about now?
Here you are, yes.
Can you, okay.
Gotcha.
Oh, it keeps going, the little symbol goes, okay, it's green now. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, Deborah. I'm very excited to share a little bit about what we're doing here in Butte County with our advisory council, and in particular with our collaborations with our community college and Chico State University. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so a little bit of history. Our prior advisory group was a small group that we called Fostering Education Connections, and we were really just a group of about 5 or 6. It was our previous FYS staff, and then we had Chico State, Butte College, our juvenile court judge, and our ILP coordinator. And I think occasionally our CASA, court-appointed special advocate, would come on too, but we were a pretty small group, and we worked on planning a couple of events for foster youth each year. And we were kind of linked up to our Children's Services Coordinating Council at that time too. We were sort of a subcommittee of that. Then after AB 854 came along, we grew to become our current FYSCP Advisory Council, which we're calling Education Transitions, and now we have about 25 to 30 members. So we grew quite a bit. We do have our assistant director of our child welfare department. That's been really helpful. We've got probation on board a lot more than we ever have before. We have our district foster youth liaisons, Butte College, Chico State, still our ILP, some community partners. We're really focusing this upcoming year on growing our collaboration with workforce development. We have CYC, and we have youth members. And the other thing I didn't want to forget to mention that's not on the slide is I recruited our county office LCAP advisor to be on our advisory council, and that has really helped a lot with our work giving input to all of our local school districts, LCAPs, through that stakeholder process. And just having her, our LCAP advisor, on our advisory board, she kind of really is understanding the foster youth education world. So that's been a good addition to our council. We only meet in person twice a year, but then we, this year, we are piloting collaborating through Collaboration in Common. I have a new staff person starting that's really going to be taking charge of that. So we're still in the process of doing that. So I'll have to update you all later on how that's going. But I think it's a great way for us to keep in touch regularly, but not have to try to pull everyone together. Because I think everyone knows that feeling of another meeting, especially in our small counties, where it's the same people in the same meetings, and we're kind of like, oh, we just saw you yesterday. Here we are again. So I think this will be a great way to do that without having to pull everyone together in person. When we do get together, oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you. I hope everyone else can. If
okay,
not, send me a question.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thanks.
My little icon turned, it's not green anymore, but you can hear me, that's good. So the other thing that we're doing is really trying to use our advisory council to bring in youth input. And one way that we've decided to do that is to have co-chairs of our advisory council. So currently we have our Butte College FYSI coordinator is one of our co-chairs, and the other co-chair is a Butte College student who is a current foster youth. So that has been a really nice way to bring youth voice into the meeting in a way that is just a little more substantial. It's not just the youth sitting there and kind of sitting through the meeting, not really participating, feeling bored. It's a way for them to really be actively engaged. So the youth work with the other co-chair on developing the agenda, sending out the announcements, taking notes. So they're really engaged as a co-chair and really get to participate. And then that co-chair also attends CYC meetings, and so acts as that link between our youth group and coming back to our advisory council. And then this year, this upcoming school year, 18-19, we're going to link up with Butte College and Chico State advisory groups. They both have these kind of informal advisory groups on campus. They're going to formalize and come in sort of under the umbrella of our FYSCP council. And we are going to rotate where we hold our meetings as well. So the first one that we're going to have in September will be at Butte College, and Butte College is going to provide lunch. We're going to have a taco bar. It's going to be a big pull to have a lot of people come out, so we're excited about that. Go to next slide. So I kind of already talked about this. So Deborah asked me how we have built our strong interagency relationships, which we really have here in Butte County. And when she first asked me that, I thought, well, it just sort of happened organically. I don't know how it happened. It just sort of happened. We all just work really well together. Then when I started thinking about it more, there are certainly ways, some structures that we put in place and some consistency that has led to building these strong relationships. The first thing is showing up for each other. I think this goes a really long way whenever one of our partners that is on our advisory council has a meeting, a training, an event, a planning committee. We really make sure that our representation is there from our FYSCP staff, and that we provide that consistent support. And so it's just that kind of when you know your person that you're going to reach out to, and when you need something and you follow through, that really goes a long way. Starting several years ago when FYS allowed us to use our FYS grant monies to bring interagency teams to the Foster Youth Ed Summit, we started doing that. Gosh, I think it was, it must have been maybe about 6 years ago when we first started taking a pretty large team for the size of our county, 10 to 15 people. And that was something in looking back that really kicked off this spirit of helping each other with resources whenever we can. We pay for their registration and their hotel, and this is people from child welfare, from our school districts. We usually bring our ILP coordinator, someone from probation. We've had our judge come. We've brought a foster parent, and then we always bring a few youth as well. And it was really great interagency team building at the summit. Everyone got to learn, and then we got to have that kind of downtime after the workshops are over. The last 3 years, we presented as an interagency team at the summit, which kind of bonded us to and was a great experience. And again, I just think I can't emphasize enough how important consistency is when building strong interagency relationships. You've just got to do what you say you're going to do and show up where you say you're going to be, and that can go a long way. We also have sort of limited resources here, it just being a smaller county that has a lot of rural areas. So we often share office space and meeting space. Just for example, our California Youth Connection chapter meets at Chico State, and their foster youth program allows us to use the space there. Our Champion Scholars, which is started out as a mentoring program, whenever we need space, we use the ILP office. And we just have this really nice way of sharing space and we just, no one charges one another for that. Our next advisory council meeting will be at Butte College, and they'll be hosting it and catering it. So it's just kind of been this norm that's developed over time of whenever we can, we'll share resources, we'll send staff to help out, cover each other's registrations on trainings and things like that. Next slide. Some of the work that our committee has done, providing LCAP stakeholder input, we're still working on this, and we're more involved with some districts. We have 14 school districts, and so it's a process, but I think linking with that county office LCAP team and LCAP advisor, linking her with our advisory council has gone a long way. We're going to be doing more of that this upcoming year. 2018, we had our third foster youth graduation event. It was a really beautiful event, and we invite high school graduates, students who are transferring, either graduating with an AA degree from the community college or transferring to a four-year, and then we also invite college graduates, and we also had two master students graduates at this last event. So it's a really nice event, and it's really inspiring for the high school youth who are graduating, because then they also see college youth graduating, and they kind of start to see, oh, that could be me in a few years. We have had our juvenile court judge host higher education luncheons, which have been planned through our advisory council. Our Butte College Foster Youth Program does registration events at our local high schools that are specific to foster youth. We work with ILP on transportation piece there. We have developed a policy for school placement changes and how to make school of origin decision, and then our transportation plan for foster youth. And that is actually attached as a handout here. It took us a few years to really get this form how we want it, but it's working pretty well. It does meet the requirements for ESSA for having a transportation plan, so we use it for that. Our school districts like that. Our FYSCP office staff collect all of these and then disperse them out to the district and the social workers, and so we really act as that link between our child welfare and districts whenever there is a placement change, which, as we know, is happening all the time, happening more than we would like, but we really have seen a decrease in school placement changes in the last few years, and I'm excited to see that statewide data as that starts to roll out too. I already talked about the ESSA plan. It's kind of the same thing as our education placement agreement. Next slide. Then I think what we have really excelled at here in Butte County is that higher ed collaboration. When I first started doing this, there wasn't a program for foster youth at either of our local colleges. Now there is, and I've just seen so much growth in the last few years of linking our high school students, and even starting down in middle school and junior high with higher ed. So I already talked about how important the student voice is. We always have this student co-chair on our advisory committee. We've always participated in CYC. At the second bullet, the peer coach model, that is from the Path Scholars, which is what they call their foster youth program at Chico State. They have student staff that act as peer coaches to other foster youth on campus. We hire foster youth. We're going into our 4th year of this program that we call Champion Scholars. And our idea was that we're linking with the Guardian Scholars and Renaissance Scholars. At Butte College, they call it Inspiring Scholars. So we hire former foster youth who are currently attending college, and we link them with high school aged foster youth in a sort of mentor-mentee relationship. We've gotten away from calling it mentoring. It's more of educational case management now, and we're doing that at the school sites. We were doing more after school, after hours and weekend stuff the first couple years, but now it's really school-based, and we're using an evidence-based model out of Minnesota called Check and Connect, which got 1 year of doing that, and that has been really successful. We had about 80% of our high school students who participated in this program remain in the same home placement and school placement, which was really exciting. So we're seeing some really great outcomes. In 2018, all of our seniors who participated in the program graduated. At the beginning of the year, 4 of those were not on track to graduate, and then they did. So we're just seeing some awesome outcomes. I'm still pulling together some attendance and discipline and data and grades, but I'd be happy to share that out later too. We do have our CYC meet at Chico State and Butte College. So again, it brings our high school students into the college campuses. They get to actually be on campus. We rotate. They're in classrooms there that we can use free of charge, because the Chico State program and Butte College programs can get those rooms for us. And it's really cool because we have this sort of pipeline of students who all know each other, and they've developed their own little community of support. So they come from high school, go to Butte College, they already have a built-in network of other students that they know, that they've met at our events and our meetings, go to conferences together. We do fun stuff too, like go hiking, go bowling, gone roller skating. We do holiday dinners and things like that. And then we've had students transfer from the community college onto the 4-year college, and that can be a huge, huge, scary leap that a lot of students delay or just never make. And we've really seen our students doing that, and it's awesome because they have this built-in community and they have people that they know who are ready to be there and support them. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. And just an example, this week, Butte College is taking some students to the state fair in Sacramento and has invited any of our high school students and Chico State students to come along, and that's all going to be paid for through Butte College. And it's just a great experience for those students to all get to know each other outside of the school environment too. And I think that's all on this slide. I already talked about doing these events throughout the year, inviting one another to these events, joint trainings, using each other's space. We always show up to train at each other's training events. Let's see. Oh, and we've even had Butte College and Chico State staff on our hiring committees when we hire our FYSCP staff, and I think that's been great. It really it feels like a concrete way to bring partners in, and it's not just kind of, oh, what do you think? It's you really have a voice as an interagency partner in how our program is being developed and who we're hiring and who we're bringing in. Something we're excited about this year, we are going to have 4 of our FYSCP student staff paid for through Butte College, and those students are going to be paid through work experience, so they'll get college credit as well, but they'll be County Office of Ed staff working for us. So we're going to be able to expand our Champion Scholars program a bit through that, so that's really exciting. And next slide. I think, was that my last slide? One more slide.
I think this one is.
This is my last slide, and I keep jumping ahead. So, yeah, this hiring college students who have been in the foster care system themselves, it's just been a really, really cool thing to watch and to see how much it's helped not only the high school students but also the college students. So when we started this, I was really thinking we're serving high school students. They're the ones who are going to be getting the most benefit out of this, and they definitely are, and we're seeing great outcomes, like I already said. But what sort of surprised me was how much this project and program has helped the college students that we hire. For one thing, it's a job for them, so it's income. And then I've really seen a few of them just blossom with their self-confidence, and they've stayed on track because we also require that they're in good academic standing in order to have the job. And so it's helped them kind of stay on track with their college coursework and their grades and making sure they're staying in good standing. And then it's just that feeling of knowing that, you know, you're a role model to someone and there's younger people looking up to you. And I've seen it really kind of push and inspire the college students to keep going. And we know that outcomes for foster youth making it all the way through and finishing college have not been great. I think this is something that can really change that. And I would love to see this model kind of spread all around the state. We have a similar model out of Butte County Office of Ed for migrant students called MiniCore, if anyone's familiar with that. So we kind of based this from that because we have MiniCore. We're in 24 college campuses around the state, and that started at BCOE in Chico State actually back in the 1960s. So we have a pretty strong legacy there that we're trying to follow with our foster youth population. I would be happy to answer any questions after we're done anyone has about that or anything else that I talked about. Contact info, a fancy new title, and yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Sorry, that's really inspiring. There are so many interesting things in what you said, and that peer-to-peer coaching is so powerful. It's great to hear about that. And as an educator, I've always known that you learn more when you teach. So I imagine that's what a lot of the college students are getting out of that. And then, of course, the high school students are getting so much inspiration and support. So it's a great model. I was also really, thanks for sharing the transportation plan. I know last year when I was asking about things that people needed help with or what we could do, what would be supportive, and I kept hearing over and over again, so many folks, so many counties were focused on the ESSA plan. It was such a big part of trying to manage systems and procedures. So it's always nice when you all share resources with each other. So thanks. We'll, with Megan's permission, we'll post that on our resource page also. And so at this point, I'm going to switch gears for a minute, and we'll certainly entertain questions and any comments you have after Paul Durham gets to speak about tell his story about San Bernardino County. So let me make sure that there's no problems with Paul being unmuted, and then say welcome. Thank you, Paul. It's all yours.
Good morning. Welcome, Foster Youth Service Coordinators. Thank you, Deborah and John Burton, for having me this morning. Thank you, Megan. I was able to get some ideas out of your presentation as well. So if we can move to the first slide. Okay, so our council was approved by our San Bernardino County Policy Council in 2011. Over the years, it has certainly transitioned a little bit, some with the number of partners that attend on a regular basis, who those partners are. Our county advisory is co-chaired by 3 different agencies, one being San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. So myself and Bernadette Pinchback are one of the co-chairs. The Deputy Director for our Child Welfare Service, our Children and Family Services, is also a co-chair. And then the third co-chair is through our Children's Network. It's the Children's Network Officer. So having 3 major agencies pulling all of their different community partners has certainly helped to increase the number of participants that attend on a monthly basis. From month to month, we probably average between 40 and 70. Our council is held every month on the second Monday of every month, dark in July and December. So we average about 10 foster advisory meetings per year. Next slide. So again, as in I'm sure all of our counties, our membership includes all the high-level agency representatives. All of our districts, we are, and I can't promote this enough, we are the largest geographical county in the United States. Our county is bigger than like 13 states in the country. We have 33 school districts. So, you know, getting everybody involved on a month-to-month basis is literally impossible. But we have had very good participation. I think at some point throughout the year, we probably have, I would say, 80% of our districts that attend at least one meeting. Some of those really far geographical areas like the Needles, the Baker that are, you know, 3.5 to 4 hour drives. Of course, we don't expect them to attend on a regular basis. But we do make sure that they're given the minutes and the agendas. We contact them regularly to make sure any concerns that they have, if they've missed something really important in advisory, we want to make sure that they're kept abreast of different laws and interpretations and things that come up. We have a very good representation from our junior colleges and our Cal State systems, CASA, DBH, probation. All of those members attend on a monthly basis. Next slide, please. So the purpose of our Foster Care Advisory Council is to provide a forum to discuss services to youth in foster care, to improve coordination, planning, communication, and cooperation among the different youth service agencies. We do this, we try to identify gaps, clarify any perceptions and expectations among the county agencies and the community. We set priorities for interagency projects, implement collaborative programs, both public and private, basically to meet the unique needs of the youth in foster care. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I think it's one of the reasons why our Foster Care Advisory Council is so effective, is because it's really grown into a multi-agency avenue for change, and I really mean that. Many of the policy and procedure issues that arise in the area of foster care, those issues are brought to this advisory council for discussion, to come up with ideas, form work groups, really get down to the dirty work. Like, what are we going to do to help alleviate some of these problems that have arisen? The advisory follows a wisdom of the room approach. We use the experience and the expertise from cross-system experts. Many of these agency director level, have experience in different laws and practice and procedures that are different from the educational field and mental health and child welfare. So bringing all of that different expertise into the room and using that collaborative approach has been very effective for us. Using the experience and the expertise of everybody in the room, the secondary post and secondary experts, and then of course over the last 10 years, the big push has been for youth voice. I love the quote from CYC local San Bernardino that the nothing about us without us. If you're going to be making policies and procedures that pertain to us and our education, that we should be involved in that process. And I try to preach that in all the different trainings and collaboratives that I go to. Okay. Some of the identified educational needs that have been addressed by our foster care council. Of course, the big one recently has been the ESSA. So out of our advisory, we got a small work group together. I think overall we had about 6 total meetings, and we had about 20 different district representatives in those meetings. We had child welfare, we had probation, and our county office. We looked at other county plans, some of the templates that the state had given us. The main push was that the districts didn't want to invent their own plans and have individual ones. They thought that having one county plan was a really good idea to save on a lot of work. But having 33 different school districts all agreeing to one plan was a little bit difficult, but we were able to finish our plan. We have so far 18 districts have signed off, and about every other day or so I'm receiving the new signed plans from districts. So as summer comes to a close and the schools start back up, actually I've received a couple phone calls from, of course, the plans are sent to the higher level district representatives, and when they get the plans, they're like, okay, what's this? And then they call me to find out the details of it, and I tell them who their district representation was that was at the meetings and what the plan is, the purpose of the plan is, give them all the details on it, and then they're signing it and sending it in. One of the other big things recently for our county has been dealing with educational rights. Where the 535s that are coming from the court are going, why the districts aren't being notified, who ed rights holders are. If there isn't an ed rights holder, the districts don't even know most of the time, so they don't know that if they have a special ed student who's a foster youth, that they need to be providing a surrogate. So also through our advisory council, we developed another subgroup. We met with our local juvenile court. It was determined that our county office program would take on this problem, that all 535s would come through our office, that we would have our personnel send those 535s to the districts, make sure the districts knew who the ed rights holders were for all of our foster youth, and that if the court was unable to appoint ed rights holder, then we would contact the districts and let the districts know, hey, if the student is special ed, he's foster youth, they don't have an ed rights holder assigned, you need to do a 536, send that to our office, and then we will forward that to the court. The response from our districts has been fantastic. This is the first time that they've ever consistently gotten ed rights holder information, which is going to be a positive impact on the educational success of our foster youth, especially when educational decisions are needed to be made in a timely manner. One of the other big things that we've had go through our advisory recently is the college and career transitions. We've partnered with numerous post-secondary education agencies. the main one being University of Redlands. We have an Expanding Horizons event that we've had every year for the last 4 years, I want to say. And then at this event, we have about 250 foster youth that spend one whole Saturday with us. They get to hear from motivational and inspirational speakers. They have a chance to meet with numerous junior college and four-year university representatives. We have service panels, so people from the community that work in different fields, police officer, nurses, pharmacy tech, numerous different fields. This year we're adding a group of self-employed, so if the students are interested in carpentry, electrical, plumbing, that sort of thing, they'll get to hear from experts that actually work in the field on what it's like to work in the field, how competitive the industry is, what the kids would have to do to get the certificates that they need, what colleges they might want to go to or degrees they might need to work in that field. So they get to spend a whole day just on college and career. So that also came out of our advisory council. Next slide, please. So the main contributing factor of having a successful advisory council in San Bernardino is definitely collaboration. I really like the way that Megan put it, that we show up for each other, whether that be meetings, events, trainings, cross collaboration, but that consistent support, making sure that agencies are cross exposed to policies, best practices, etc. Members of our advisory council, they participate in the events and even advisories of other agencies. So many of our active advisory participants sit on our local junior college advisories or our local four-year university advisories. Many of them sit on our local district LCAPs, so that they're getting that experience in different agencies that they're not familiar with. One of the other big things, we've started a youth ambassador program through our advisory. We're going to have one youth ambassador program in each of our 3 geographical regions. The major push for this is to teach these youth leadership, resiliency, and empowerment skills. Once the youth have been in these youth ambassador programs for a little while and they learned how to effectively tell their own story, and they've been given some direction on how to affect policy, what things went right for them educationally, what went wrong, and that their voice counts. We'll use these youth, we'll actually hire them, and they'll speak on different panels and come to some of our trainings and speak to our districts, our community partners. We've also been able to have high district best, invite our districts that have really good foster youth policies and practices that are getting the outcomes that other districts aren't. And also agencies that have best practices and that are also getting really good outcomes. We invite them to some of our bigger events, our trainings and our workshops. We have a Foster and Homeless Summit that we've put on every year for the last 3 years. This is a dual county summit that we partner with our Riverside County Office of Education partners. I think last year we had about 300 participants. And we have districts from both Riverside and San Bernardino and agencies from Riverside and San Bernardino that share what they do that makes them effective. One of our highlights on our evaluations, this last one, was we have a local district, Redlands, that has a case carrier program. And the other districts that don't have similar programs were very envious and wondering, okay, how did you get this set up? It developed into a lot of questions. Those representatives from those districts can take those questions back to their administrators, and hopefully that will positively affect their practices. And I think that's my last slide. So here's my contact information. If you have any questions, I think we have a question and answer session now, so I'd be happy to answer any of those questions for you.
Tremendous. Thanks, Paul. I am intrigued by some of the examples that you gave and the way that it sort of really provides the archetype of the coordinative role of FYSCP when you were talking about the ESSA plan and people wanted a countywide plan, so you could really be that coordination factor, and also the 535 going through your office. So those are great examples of the benefit of that kind of role, but also the collaborations you've been able to establish. Very inspiring, both of you. I'm very inspired. I hope you all are. And I want to see if there's any questions. While I do that, I'd like to ask a question of maybe even each of you, which is when you've both talked about the quality of relationships and the showing up for each other, and that's how you build that sort of trust and confidence across agencies and so forth. That's sort of, I'm wondering though, when you think about kind of one sort of practical matter, convenings are often, as we all know, people have so many meetings, and it's always a challenge to make sure that it's relevant and useful for folks. And of course, there's a big difference in size between Butte and San Bernardino County. I mean, 50 to 70 people at each of your meetings is a substantial meeting to try to conduct. And we get that Butte has 2 meetings a year because you're able to see each other and sort of work together often. But when you do have a convening, what's your secret sauce? Is there anything that you do that you think really helps make sure that there's something for everyone in that meeting and that people walk away feeling it was really worth their time and the effort to get there? Paul, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So our meetings have been very, I want to say, standardized in the agenda process. So each of the 3 co-chair agencies will share out. So child welfare will have their ILP staff share out. They'll have their peer and family advocates share out. Children's Network has numerous events that they have throughout the year, and they will share out. Our county office will also tell about any of our trainings that are coming up or any of our workshops or events. We invite community partners that have programs that are youth focused to come in and share what they're doing for youth, so that each of the different representatives in the meeting. So at the last one we have a program up in the high desert that serves youth who have had family members or friends that have died. So it's not really a counseling program, but it's like a grief therapy type program with free services. So anytime we can offer free services, and our different agencies can promote that out to the families, and the families know, hey, we can go here and get free services, we can go there and get free services, that makes it very relevant. And then all the other partners in the room during the round table, which usually, is a significant portion of the meeting. Our meetings last about 2 hours. So about the last 20 minutes or so, there's round table. So all of the other partners in the room, CYC, can share any news or events or policies that they want to bring up. Everybody has a chance to participate in the meeting.
Okay, thanks. Megan, anything you want to?
Yeah, I think for Butte County, I think having that youth co-chair, it guarantees that there's always going to be a strong youth voice. We often have a few other youth attending, and I think that's a big draw for people to want to come to our meeting because they get really inspired, and especially some of the council members who are directors of our agencies feel kind of distant and removed from hearing from actual youth. So I think they really love that part. some of even our school district administrators are so stuck in their meetings and in their district office that they don't even get out to school sites to see youth very often. So I think that is a big draw for people. They know when they come to our advisory council meeting, they're going to get a good strong dose of youth voice, which I think people, it sort of energizes them. This year, we're also going to start scheduling our meetings at lunchtime and going to have a taco bar. So that's a big draw. And it does help when you have to go to so many meetings if it can also be lunchtime. And then that's also going to give us some of that informal time to network and build those kind of friendships too, which I think is important.
Right. Nice. Any questions from anyone else? I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Youth and tacos.
Youth and tacos, the secret sauce.
Yes.
Well, I like too that you emphasize that the youth are actually agents in the meeting and not just bystanders.
Yeah,
or
they're not
just the
sit
sort
there
of,
and be bored. Yeah.
Right, or the showpiece. Okay, let the youth talk for a few minutes and then we go on with our business, sort of thing. So that's a big shift. Really important. Somebody's noise is okay. And also, you mentioned a couple of times how valuable, Megan, it was to have the LCAP advisor in your advisory group. And so I'm imagining that I just wanted to call that out again because I can imagine that's something that might spark interest in a lot of counties. Can you say anything else about that?
No, I don't think so. I think I already kind of said that that was just a pretty powerful link because she is working with all of our school districts on their LCAPs, and she came from the more curriculum world, and she didn't really know anything about student services or foster youth at all. So bringing her into our advisory council, it really helped her understand when she's going out to work with our districts about the foster youth piece of their LCAPs.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, I was also really struck by you describing your events where districts are able to inspire other districts. That being such a great vehicle for folks going, oh, that sounds interesting. Let's see if we can do that back at our district, right? I think I heard that in.
Right, and I think that's a piece of a bigger puzzle. So as I'm thinking about it, I think another big reason why our advisory council is so successful, especially getting district representation, is that our district recognize our program as being the experts in foster care. Mm-hmm. So we attend the monthly child welfare and attendance meetings for our county. We're a standing agenda item on those council meetings. We also attend the SARB meetings, and we also sit on local SARB boards. So we're constantly in these higher level educational settings, promoting foster youth rights, and policies and practices. And I think that goes a long way in establishing that credibility with the districts.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds great. And then also your role that you described in being so providing so much assistance to the districts in dealing with their obligations. So then you're their friend, right? You're their colleague and an aide. Yeah. Well, I don't see any other questions from audience members, so I guess we have satisfied folks' interest. I forgot to put the discussion slide up. So at this point, I'm going to just honor the time, unless either of you have anything else you want to add in closing. You've both given such great information and presentations. I'm really grateful to each of you for taking the time to help me put this together, to be here and share so much great expertise. And hopefully it's validating a lot of you and what you're all doing already. And maybe I'm hoping giving you some ideas and inspiration about what you might do. And we'd always want to hear about that and share the news with each other. So if there's anything that you felt was important for this you can always let me know, and I can put the word out to the rest of the community. But thank you all for attending, and I look forward to the next one, August 16th, and we will see you and talk to you in the meantime. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.